Hi everyone and welcome to today's webinar. We're just going to give folks a couple of minutes to join. So the webinar will start in approximately 1 minute. Hi everyone, let's get started on today's webinar, Top Lead Nurturing Strategies for B2B Marketers. Thanks so much for joining. My name is Marinda Peppard and I'm your host for today. And I'm joined here by Veena Glover, who is Marketing Manager at eMedia. Hi Veena. Hello. Thanks for joining. So just before we begin, I would like to cover a few quick notes about the webinar platform that you see here in front of you. Today's webinar will be available on demand after we wrap up, so we'll be sure to send this out to you. No problem about that. We always get asked that question. And you can enlarge the slides by clicking the Enlarge Slides button located in the right-hand corner of your presentation window. And should you need any technical assistance, no problem there either. Just click on the Help wizard located in the bottom left of your console. So, of course, on webinars we love questions, so please do submit your questions at any time throughout the presentation using the Ask a Question widget at the bottom of your console. So we will try and answer as many questions as we can at the end of the presentation. If we don't get to your question, no problem, we will connect with you afterwards to make sure we respond to you. So let's get started then. So my name is Marinda Peppard. I lead the marketing for Pardot Salesforce in Europe. So Pardot is Salesforce's marketing automation solution. I've been involved in B2B marketing for around 15 years now in some shape or form, working really closely with our sales colleagues to really drive leads for both small and large businesses. But really my career over the last 6 years took a bit of a different direction when I set up and deployed marketing automation solution within my organization. And from then, I really felt that marketing automation and lead nurturing as a marketing strategy allowed me to become a real partner to my sales team. For the first time, I felt like it was a level playing field. I could really track which leads and the leads that I was sending across to sales, and also the pipeline, what of that pipeline turned into revenue from all of our marketing programs. So I know really how lead nurturing has impacted me as a marketing professional. So I wanted to see if this was the case, with other B2B marketers and how this is if this is a sort of a standard thing across B2B marketers in the UK and also globally. So what we did here at Salesforce, we employed eMedia, a company based here in the UK, to run a global survey of top marketers to really look how those marketers are using lead nurturing today. So that's the foundation of our webinar today. It will be split into 4 sections. So we'll be looking at a quick look at what the state of lead nurturing is today. I'll then hand over to my co-presenter, Veena Glover, who's here with me in the office today, to discuss the research findings. Then, based on those findings, we'll have a look at how you can make small changes today and hopefully some top tips that you can walk away with to get the best out of your lead nurturing programs. And then, of course, we'll have some time for Q&A. So let's get started on the state of lead nurturing. And I think, so where are we today as B2B marketers? We really know that the way our customers engage with us and other B2B companies and brands has fundamentally changed. In the past, we only had a limited number of channels and touch points to work with, really, and our buyer could only engage with us really through marketing and sales. So on this slide, we see a few of the different channels here in the grey for sales, and some of the different marketing channels here in the blue. But we know, with the age of digital marketing, and we've seen a huge explosion of channels and tactics that buyers can really engage with and be influenced by as they move towards making a purchase decision. And, Forrester says, I think 66% of the decision has actually been made before a buyer even contacts a company. That's a big deal, and, I think that will only increase, and some say it will be 80% by 2020. And the access that the information everyone has now at their fingertips really gives them lots of decision-making power. There's a lot more power in that buyer's driving seat. And of course, the buyer has to deal with lots of noise from marketers. We're inundated with all of these messages every day. How do we find the information we need in a seamless way? We really know that when we know ourselves when we make a purchase that getting the right amount of information can be difficult. So, for companies with a longer sales cycle that you see, such as in B2B, the buying process really is complex. Each buyer has a slightly different path to purchase. Companies really need to work hard to ensure the message stands out. So, us as marketers, we're in a bit of a difficult place. So, we need to organize all these interaction points into a cohesive experience, I think. That's really our fundamental task at the moment. And, we also want to make sure that these touch points are personalized and that they drive towards sale. We're really tasked, I think, also as marketers in understanding the data behind each of these touch points. And we really need to know how we continuously improve our campaigns to make sure that we're optimizing everything, getting the best out of it all. And we really want to make sure that our buyer's experience feels smooth and seamless, because we know actually our buyers will pay a premium and will pay more for a smooth experience. So this buyer shift has happened. And we need to really know how to adapt, and we know what we're tasked with. So, this is the fundamentals of lead nurturing. I think the buyer process has changed. Us as marketers have changed. My personal experience in the last 6 years managing demand generation programs is that, my role as a marketer has changed. So we all really need to adapt. So I guess the question now becomes, how do we empower marketing and sales to better connect with each other? And ultimately, how do we change that B2B buyer? And I think most of us know that marketing automation and nurturing leads until they are ready to buy is the most important part to this equation. And so, that's why we really kicked off this research project with eMedia to find out really how marketers are adapting to this new sort of buying behavior of their customers. And we wanted to set out to see what marketers are doing today and to help nurture their leads and implement marketing automation programs across their companies. So I have Veena here with me today. Thanks for joining me, Veena, and I'll hand over the reins to you now for the next section to discuss the findings of the report.
Great. So just a brief introduction on myself. Hello, everyone. So I've been in B2B marketing for around 8 odd years now, and most recently as the EMEA marketing manager at eMedia. So eMedia are part of the international digital media company Ziff Davis, and we specialize in global B2B lead generation. So using innovative client-led content, we connect high-quality vendors with their target market across IT, marketing, HR, and finance sectors, to name a few. My day-to-day role has a great variety, from organizing events to collaborating with partners on research projects with the aim of maximizing brand exposure, and something I'm sure you as top-tier marketeers can relate to, generating some glorious leads for your sales team and, of course, nurturing these leads. So moving on into the project. Before I jump into the methodology, just want to briefly describe what exactly lead nurturing is and where it originates from. So lead nurturing is the process of cultivating an ongoing relationship with your prospects, and to keep doing this throughout every stage of the buyer's journey. In the right hands, we all know it's a powerful marketing strategy, and it delivers relevant, informative content, and that's designed to educate and engage your audience, all while priming them to purchase. As Marinda earlier touched upon, contrary to popular belief, lead nurturing actually predates the digital era, and in fact it's as old as trade itself. And today, through the use of bespoke messaging and targeted content, we can once again generate a sense of human connection between the company and client. So why did we carry out the survey? There was very little research and findings on lead nurturing, which is why eMedia and Pardot wanted to discover the latest and greatest lead nurturing strategies that you, as top-tier marketeers, currently deploy to drive your prospects through the buying cycle. So we explored the benefits you've all reaped, the challenges you face, and of course all the future goals that you aspire to. Moving on to the methodology. We designed the survey on PollDaddy with more than 20 questions that were sent to a large audience of top-tier B2B marketeers around the world. We chose to carry out an online survey because it had an easy-to-use interface, and it was very simple for the user to navigate through and answer, as many questions were multiple choice, and this ensured that the respondents were offered a reasonable range of answers to choose from. To maximize the engagement and participation, both eMedia and Pardot promoted the survey online to our respective databases, through social media channels, and through partner networks. It's interesting to note that almost a 50-50 split of participants came from SMEs and enterprises, and over half the participants were actually from the IT technology industry, followed closely by advertising and marketing agencies. This is great for us as B2B marketeers to relate to, as the participants of the surveys hail from similar company sizes as you and I. So moving on to personalized lead nurturing programs. I love starting on a positive note, and it's great to see that 80% of participants describe their lead nurturing programs as personalized. Personalized emails actually generate up to 6 times higher revenue than non-personalized emails, and it is a far more sophisticated lead nurturing technique compared to sending the entire database the same series of emails. So how have these top-tier marketeers personalized their lead nurturing programs? They've either segmented their database and send a different series of emails to each group, or, depending on the recipient's actions and their interests, a series of emails is sent. This is also known as behavioral triggered emails. This would enable you as the marketeer to deliver the right message to the right people at exactly the right time. One of the primary advantages of lead nurturing is its ability to target communications on one-to-one level. So using segmentation capabilities at your fingertips, you can sort the leads and the clients held in your database into targeted lists and then develop exclusive content for each list. The DMA actually stressed the importance of this, saying that targeted, segmented, and activity-based emails are far better received by buyers, and that actually accounts to more than 75% of all email marketing revenue. We've actually put together 3 simple steps to identify to help you segment your database. The first step would be to identify the different types of leads or buyer personas in your funnel. The second step would be to tailor your content based on the buyer's stage in the buying process. And the third step would be to choose content that is relevant to your customers' needs to better resonate with your audience. You can segment your database on pretty much any category, such as geography or industry, company size, even past purchases. Moving on to marketing automation. So according to previous research, only 60% of B2B marketeers actually use marketing automation software. So it's really promising to see that 90% of these top B2B marketeers surveyed actually use this essential platform to help automate marketing and sales engagement. If you don't currently use any marketing automation software, you might be struggling with generating or qualifying, even prioritizing and nurturing leads. With marketing automation, your sales and marketing departments can work as a single cohesive team, and this helps automate and optimize your leads as they move from the top of the funnel down to the bottom, which is where sales are made. So marketing automation helps you generate leads, qualify and prioritize these leads, nurture them to a sales-ready state so you can pass them off to your sales team, and of course helps you manage your email marketing campaigns and helps you analyze and report on the success of your campaigns. Your marketing departments can save plenty of time and resources with an easy-to-use platform. It makes it simple to manage all of your campaigns in one single solution. Your campaigns can run on autopilot, and you can spend your time on all the other things you need to do to become a more successful marketeer. You will have a 360 view of how your prospects are interacting with you, and you've got all the tools you need to turn them into customers. Marketing automation has come a very long way since its debut in the 1990s, and Salesforce actually mentioned that marketing automation was one of the most piloted marketing technologies of 2015. It is a very popular tactic that is still somewhat in the early stages of adoption, and hopefully as a result, more and more of you will leverage marketing automation tools in 2017. We're going to move on now to the value of lead nurturing. So we all know that implementing lead nurturing programs significantly outperforms standard campaigns, and ringing true to that fact, 83% of top-tier marketeers surveyed felt this was the case. B2B marketeers have listed numerous benefits that they've gained from carrying out lead nurturing programs, myself, which include generating a greater quantity of warm leads, the ability to segment prospects, based, for example, on their interests and behaviors, and a high response rate directly resulting from this. They've also shown that this means that sales and marketing departments can work together in an effective partnership as a greater number of leads are being accepted by sales. One thing is for sure, lead nurturing is an indispensable tool, but to realize its true potential, we need to know how to harness this power and utilize it effectively to reap the rewards. We're now going to talk about the greatest challenges that we as marketeers face. As marketeers, we're always pulled in so many different directions, and it can seem really overwhelming at times, which is why we asked you to elaborate on the greatest challenges you faced when implementing lead nurturing programs. So I'm going to briefly run through the 5 biggest obstacles you face, and Marinda will then be covering these. So one of the greatest challenges that you faced was the difficulty in creating targeted content based on buyer interest, followed by not having enough marketing resources and, of course, the time to do all of your campaigns, insufficient data to nurture the leads with, so whether it's not having a large enough database or the quality of the data, and, of course, the lack of insight into lead nurturing best practices, which is, of course, why we even carried out this survey, because there wasn't much insight to begin with. And, of course, the one pet peeve of all marketeers, which is that the sales team isn't providing enough support. Moving on to the content that's used in lead nurturing campaigns. So recent studies show that 75% of B2B buyers rely more on content to research and make B2B purchasing decisions than they did a year ago. Content marketing is becoming more of a necessity rather than an accessory, as I'd like to say, which means that you as top-tier marketeers need to focus on ways to engage with your audience by using relevant and valuable content to attract and retain buyers, ultimately to drive profitable customer action, i.e. a sale. A strategic content marketing program is essential in staying competitive in today's marketplace, because if you don't provide useful, tailored content, your customers are going to seek out companies that do, i.e. your competitors. So what are the benefits of content marketing? When companies use content to speak directly to their audience, it helps engage with the buyers at various stages of the sales cycle. So good content is going to position your company as an industry expert by educating your target audience. So what were the primary tactics that the B2B marketers surveyed users offers within their lead nurturing campaigns? The three front runners were white papers, webinars, and thought leadership pieces when it comes to content used in lead nurturing campaigns. So we're now going to talk about overcoming the challenges that we mentioned briefly before.
Thanks, Veena. Yeah, I'm going to delve into this a little bit later and actually try and give you some tangible takeaways to actually figure out what can you do today to help improve your lead nurturing strategy, or if indeed you're only thinking about your lead nurturing, what are some of those top tips that you can think about. And I think it's really interesting that that list of challenges from you, and I'll certainly delve into those in a bit more detail. But here at Salesforce, we really find that developing buyer personas is super useful. So we target a number of different personas, obviously the marketing persona, where everyone's on the call today. We also target the sales persona and also IT. So it's really interesting to actually generate specific nurture programs and different messaging for each of those personas. I think that's a really key step to know your buyer. The second is also clean and enrich and maintain your data. So we all know as marketers how important it is to maintain our data. Every company I've worked at, I think, has had, it has a challenge cleaning their data. It's a super difficult thing to do. But it's really the baseline of your activity, and if you don't start that with as clean a data as possible, it's really difficult to progress from that step forward. Of course, plan and prioritize. We all know how important it is, and you know what? It keeps sales at bay. You know that they come up to your desk every 5 minutes with a new idea or a new campaign that they're interested in. If you can show them your plan for the next month or 3 months, that really keeps them at bay, and that you can say to them, hey, let's look in the last week of the quarter and create, and then we can brainstorm all the new ideas for next quarter. It really helps being a bit more strategic with your sales department. So everything else, of course, it's really great to use the insight that you generate from your customer's journey through lead nurturing to deliver back to your sales team. So I found in my role that actually when I'm able to give that insight, put it in the hands of my sales team, they really appreciate the work we're doing. And of course, all of this helps with alignment with sales.
So we're going to briefly talk about the benefits of content marketing in terms of white papers, infographics, and webinars. So, for example, white papers, you can commission you can commission your research paper to enable your target audience to easily digest a complex topic, help solve a problem, and even aid them in their decision-making process. You can use this research paper as part of your content syndication strategies and quickly gauge reaction from top decision makers across the globe. This helps you communicate your expertise and boost your brand image. Moving on to infographics. So infographics are beautifully rendered visual representations of large pieces of information, and we designed them in an easy to digest format. So these exciting and engaging pieces help resonate with readers, and it can be shared through social media channels, and again, to help bolster brand exposure. Webinars, for example, this one, are the ultimate channel to speak directly to prospects. They help develop trust with new customers and nurture existing relationships via engaging educational content, high-quality research, and in-depth analysis on trending topics. Webinars help establish you as a thought leader and demonstrate your expertise through a fully immersive experience to entice your target market. I'm going to briefly talk about the content lifecycle funnel here. So the importance of the content funnel is to basically give you a better idea where different types of content would be best utilized in the funnel. Going back to basics for a second, we know that an ice-cold prospect, in order for them to become a customer, that they need to travel through the funnel from awareness through evaluation and finally conversion. Moving on to the content marketing funnel, which you see here, always remember that a full funnel is a good funnel. For example, blogs and infographics are types of content at the top of the funnel where the prospect becomes aware that there's a problem. A software download or quizzes and surveys, for example, are in the middle of the funnel content, and this helps the prospect evaluate their choices, including your competitor's solution. Once the prospect moves through the evaluation stage, they're now at the purchase stage. This is where you want to convert your lead using content like webinars or even demos and free trials. Talking about the future of lead nurturing, so we know that lead nurturing is a powerful marketing strategy, and it's really clear that marketeers like me and you want to continue reaping the success of these lead nurturing programs that by setting a variety of objectives that revolve around lead nurturing. Almost a quarter of participants who were surveyed want to increase conversion rates and generate more sales-ready leads. This is a great step in the right direction, which helps ensure that marketing and sales departments work in collaboration with each other. As marketeers, we know that numerous benefits can be earned from implementing lead nurturing programs, and that they always significantly outperform standard campaigns. Once the leads enter the sales funnel, nurtured lead campaigns outperform non-nurtured leads. This is great news for marketeers like you and me, so we can create a positive impact in numerous areas, which will all eventually contribute to a greater ROI.
That's great, Veena. Thank you so much. I think it's really interesting, the findings of the report. You had quite a lot of respondents there, and I know that there was a lot were UK-based, which is great, and a lot were also based in the US. So really interesting to see how different companies are using lead nurturing. And in particular, what was interesting to me was the challenges described in the survey. If we cast our eyes back to that pyramid of challenges that the survey respondents considered, I want to spend just a couple of minutes now addressing some of those challenges and figuring out, okay, how do we, if this is a key challenge, then what is an actionable takeaway that you can go and implement today? So I know we talked a lot about content. You provided some great analysis on why we need content, the different how we use the sales funnel and different stages of content to really nurture that lead through so that they're sales ready. But the funny thing is, the challenge is people find it difficult to create content. We know that it's not just about sending the same email 5 times. That's not nurturing. That's called spamming. And, none of us as marketers want to be known for that. And I think, before we hit the send button, we really need to think about that logical sequence and then really create, as you described, Veena, some relevant content along a defined path. So we have a tried and tested formula that we use here at Salesforce, which I wanted to share with you guys. It's really about not creating ad hoc content. You always have someone coming to you in the office. It might be your managing director, it might be a salesperson saying, hey, we should do a campaign on this. I really love a content piece on this. And I think the important thing is that you want to generate content that is strategic. You want to use data to back up the decision to generate that content. So have a look at your data, speak to your customers, and then decide what content you should be creating. And what we do at Salesforce to make sure that it's as time efficient as possible, we put all of our resources and brains in the business behind one piece of anchor content per quarter. So at Carter, we do it per quarter. Some other departments here do it on a monthly basis. And it might take you 2 weeks to generate that anchor piece of content. This is where you put third-party data. This is where you put research. This is where you might survey your customers and put all of that into a hefty white paper document. And you might even get a professional copywriter to generate this. You might even commission an analyst or an agency to generate this. But because you want it to be super well written, and of course you gate it, you put it behind a landing page, and that's really important. to make sure that you're capturing those leads. But then what do you do when you've finished generating that piece of content that's taken you 2 weeks? You can then give it to a more junior member of your team, quite frankly, someone who just slices and dices it into various different forms. So a junior production copywriter can slice and dice it. You can create articles for PR. You can create infographic slides. All of the assets, you're not generating fresh. You're literally taking it from that one anchor piece. And then, of course, your blog strategy can sit within that. So here, through one nice, meaty white paper, you've got a whole quarter worth of content. So, that's something that we do here at Salesforce. And the other thing that saves you time, and ultimately, it saves you time and stops you from having to go to the web department all the time, is dynamic content. So if you think back to the pyramid that Vina presented, the second most challenging thing that marketers found with lead nurturing was time and resource. And this is really where marketing automation software, saves you valuable time. And there's, I would suggest that marketing automation software that is easy and intuitive to use will save you even more time. But if you don't have dedicated marketing automation specialists, it's really important that you choose a marketing automation provider that is super quick to get started on. In my life, I've trained on most of the tools out there, and really, it can be a difference from, between 1 hour and 3 months to send your first email campaign. So really think carefully about how long you want to get up and running. The key to resource constraints really is dynamic content. This is one of my favorite things. I use it all the time. As we know, and as Vina mentioned to us, the better the personalization of the content to the reader, the higher the conversion rate is. So we know that really to create that personalized journey, you can use dynamic content without the need of your web team to get involved. So I'm definitely not a technical person. I'm not a coder. But I can create landing pages, I can create emails, or in this example, we've actually used dynamic content in our autoresponder. And this is where content is dynamically inserted based on the user's journey. So let's look at an example. So if your customer has been reading content on your website related to the finance industry, then why not automatically serve them more content based on the finance industry? I mean, really simple industry segmentation, but imagine all the different permutations and combinations of assets and web pages that you would need if you didn't have dynamic content. So I think in this example here on our autoresponder, and we spent a lot of time actually considering our autoresponder strategy because when people are in the mood for downloading content, they've already downloaded one, and in this example here it's an ebook. Why not target them with another piece of content based on their interest area? At the bottom here of the autoresponder you see the inventory of another piece of content which hopefully will push that user through the journey. So I think content is key. Obviously, the other piece is sales and marketing alignment, and I really think we know from the triangle that Vina presented that marketers identified that they were not getting enough sales support with their lead nurturing strategies. And we all know the age-old tensions between sales and marketing. Marketing can be, a little frustrated sometimes when sales don't follow up on their great quality leads, and sales can be really frustrated sometimes with the quality of those leads, or let's say the perceived quality of those leads. So, we know that there's always been this kind of frenemy, if you like, this frenemy dynamic between sales and marketing. But the reality is, and I've seen this in my role, that marketing is becoming a lot more like sales. We are responsible for a revenue number sometimes. We're responsible for generating pipeline. And sales is becoming a lot more like marketing. So they have to be thought leaders within their industry. They have to be the ones who have all the knowledge about industry trends. They need to be a personality of sorts, good speakers out at conferences. And, my experience in the past that I've really become more of a true partner to sales when I've implemented marketing automation software, because then, sales and marketing are forced to get on the same page from the get-go. When you implement marketing automation, you need to understand what is a lead. What is, how do we define a lead? How many leads do you want? When we set up all the programs, when is the right appropriate time to send those leads across to you? So, we all know there's no point spending the money if sales doesn't actually follow up. And, we want to also prove the value of marketing. So when it comes to time to connect your marketing automation software to your CRM platform, of course, here at Salesforce, it's easy for me as a marketer because I use Pardot, our marketing automation tool, but I also use Salesforce as our CRM. And I just want to show you a bit of an example here of what my sales team see when they look in their Salesforce dashboard and they look at all the leads coming in from marketing. And so if you see here on the left-hand side, we assign those leads to a queue. Perhaps I generate, let's say, for the purposes of the example, 100 leads in a week. This goes into the queue. I can then go to the sales manager at the end of the week and say, hey, we've sent you this 100 leads. You can see this in the campaign. But I can see only 50 leads have been followed up on. And, that's a bit of a shame because we spent so much money on these leads. They're good leads. And then that gives the sales manager the right tracking and the right reporting to be able to go to the sales team and see what happened with those leads. And it might be a quality issue, but if that's the case, then what I do on a weekly basis is sit down and go through those leads that weren't of great quality to really learn and get some of that feedback back to better improve my marketing campaigns. And then, of course, in this particular example, the grade and the score is really high. They've got a grade of B+, which means that they're probably a manager level or above. They've got a score of 262, which means that they are probably super engaged with our website. In fact, you can see the campaign that they've come through, which is the live webinar there. And we can also see the campaign history. So what are all the other marketing campaigns that they've engaged with before they've come across to the salesperson? That really helps fuel the conversation that the salesperson has with that individual. And then you can actually add a task. So the bottom left-hand corner here is a task, what the sales individual sees on their Salesforce platform, to actually, that they will have to action on that and make sure that they follow up with the lead. So I think, all of this is great. We're tracking it. Fabulous marketing and sales. We're working together. We're tracking our leads. But of course, I'm not sure why the slide isn't progressing, so I'm just going to progress that now. Perfect. So the other thing which I've found has really helped me in my role as a marketing person and in my alignment with sales is enabling my sales team to do their own lead nurturing. So if you're struggling to get sales engaged in your lead nurturing activities, then why not let them manage, some of this themselves? And here at Salesforce, we have a solution called Salesforce Engage, and this really is the olive branch between sales and marketing, and essentially it allows sales to send their own nurture programs. And the reason why it's good for sales is that they can then stay top of mind with the individual. They can stay top of mind with some of those contacts. And also they can track, right? So it speeds their time to close on a deal because they can track when someone opens one of those emails. They can give them a call straight away and say, hey, Big Brother is not watching, but would you be interested in a demo or something to that effect? So really helps sales understand the value of nurturing when they can send their own nurture campaigns. Now, I was maybe a little concerned when I first heard about this. I thought, well, actually, that's my role. Why do I want to put this in the hands of sales? But actually, it's good for marketing as well. It's not only good because it gets sales on board, it shows them the value of lead nurturing. It's also good because you know that sales are now on brand. They're using all of the campaigns that you've created, spent time and effort in fine-tuning on the messaging. And, you know, let's face it, we know that sales try and do their own email kind of nurture mini campaigns anyway. So why not make sure that they're using all of your marketing materials at the same time? So, you know, I think adding also another problem that this also solves is insufficient data. So, you know, finally in one of the in that chart, if we think back to the triangle that Vina spoke about, the final piece to that puzzle was a lack of insufficient data. So if you give lead nurturing to your sales team and allow them to nurture, you don't necessarily need marketing data, right? So the sales team are creating their own data. They are making calls on a daily basis. They are finding email addresses. They can simply drop their customers into the lead nurture program. So that's one way in which you can overcome that insufficient data problem. But there are other ways, you know, you can use lead nurturing to generate revenue for your business. It doesn't necessarily mean you need to buy expensive net new lead data. You know, we all know it's expensive to generate new leads. You know, so what about nurturing your existing customers? You know, actually, you can use lead nurturing to nurture your sales teams if you want, you know, for sales enablement. There's a whole bunch of use cases that lead nurturing and marketing automation can help solve. So I think too many companies really focus on acquisition at the expense of retention. And actually, you know, we've all heard the stats that marketers generally spend twice as much on acquisition as they do on retention, you know, even though, you know, perhaps their current customers account for most of the share of revenue within the business. And then you've probably heard the stat somewhere along the line, it costs an average of 7 times more to acquire a new customer than it does to keep an existing one. So if you're a company that isn't focused on net new leads, but you're a company that's focused on getting more revenue out of your existing leads, then, you know, lead nurturing can also help with this. So just talking through a couple of examples here, training is a big one. So, you know, why not use your marketing automation tool to ensure that your customers are adequately trained on all the services you offer? So, you know, this could be a simple series of you know, solution or industry information that keeps you top of mind with them. But we also know that the more a customer uses your solutions, the more likely they are to stay with you. And at Salesforce, you know, as an example, we train our customers by dropping them into onboarding nurture programs when they sign up with us. So this also helps really reduce the time our customer service teams need to spend with their new customers, you know, which they love. But, you know, not often that marketing and customer service actually get together and on a joint benefit, but that is one. So they're really happy, you know, with the onboarding programs we do with customers. You know, it helps save them time. Now, also client retention. So, you know, I think companies really should be investing as much energy into improving the service that they do as perfecting their products. You know, it's one element is service, one element is the product or solution that you provide. And, you know, I think nurturing your existing customers is really a great way to improve your service and also the customer experience. So you can start by scoring customers to identify, you know, which are the most satisfied. You can also identify which are in danger of, you know, jumping ship. You can also use your lead scoring to identify which customers are qualified for upsell or cross-sell campaigns. So, you can send them, for example, you can send them customer newsletters using your marketing automation tool, and then you can track which parts of the newsletter your customers are most interested in. And then you can also track their engagement with your company. So all of this really helpful to cross-selling and upselling. And obviously you can expand your accounts by providing content that might be relevant to their colleagues. So, you might want to, they may then share on the information and generate more cross-sell opportunities for your business into either a different department or a different function. And of course, the more engaged your customer, the more likely they are to renew with you. And then the more they are potentially to buy another one of your solutions or indeed recommend you to another company. So lots and lots of reasons in which, just getting new data is not necessarily, the most important part of lead nurturing. So I think we also have, I know that eMedia in the chat window here, or if it's not in the chat window just yet, we will send this on afterwards. It's some further information around lead nurturing tactics, and there's a helpful guide you can download in the chat widget, and also a helpful guide from a part of Salesforce about lead nurturing as well. Really quite a definitive guide, and we also have lots of worksheets and workbooks that you can kind of fill in and go along and work it through as a workbook, which is really quite useful. But clearly some of these elements, targeting and personalization, as we talked about, great multi-channel, multi-funnel strategy, so really making sure that you push through from top of the funnel out to the bottom of the funnel. And Veena, did you have anything to add here on this piece as well?
Yeah, sure. So it's just the importance of obviously following up leads. I've actually been in sales many, many moons ago, so I appreciate the frustrations from both the sales and marketing perspective. Obviously for eMedia, we generate leads for our clients, and I think one of the primary frustrations that the marketing managers that we work with face is that their sales team aren't effectively following up leads. Obviously salespeople know how to do their job, but sometimes we kind of need to guide them, which is why we've actually recently published a best practice guide that will help you convert new leads into buyers in the most efficient manner. So I think that Marinda did mention that you can download this asset now, or if not, we'll obviously send you the link. But it's great to obviously pass on this best practice guide to your sales team so they know how best to follow up on the leads, which obviously means happy marketing team.
That's great. Thanks, Veena. So I know we've had a flurry of questions coming in. So I hope this webinar really has given you some great insight into what marketers are doing today and some of the top tips, to overcoming those lead nurturing challenges. And I think, it's a couple of stats to leave you with. When a lead is nurtured, it increases the chance of converting by 20%. And 20% of your existing customers will ultimately be responsible for generating 80% of your future profits. So, I think a couple of really interesting stats to consider there as we go into the Q&A. So now just pulling up some questions. Just looking through the drip here. You mentioned using lead nurturing to enable your sales team. What do you mean by that? Okay, really great question. Thanks for asking that. So I guess sales enablement is quite a strong function of the marketing strategy. I guess when you work in a B2B organization that has a lot of salespeople, certainly here at Salesforce, sales enablement here is a big part of my role. And actually, sometimes getting sales to remember all the things that marketing does, or the messaging of your product, or new product launches, etc., can be a bit challenging, and especially if you've got new salespeople starting all the time. how do you kind of a personalized one-to-one meeting with everyone to explain them on the messaging hierarchy. So we actually create our own nurturing programs for onboarding new salespeople, and actually we have drip programs that help that all the sales folks are on at the same time to make sure that they're fully up to date with all the latest messaging. So hopefully that helps to solve that question a little bit. Let's now go into just reading some of the how do we get onboarding, support training, full features of Pardot. Yeah, so any questions specific about Pardot and the product, we will definitely come back to you with some information on that. So thank you for posting that question in the chat pod. We'll be sure to come back to you. I think it's interesting to think about marketing automation and your CRM solution. And I think a question here about someone sales is reluctant to use CRM solution. How do we persuade them otherwise? It's a really good question. I think this has to come from top down, 100%. There is a clear benefit to the business for tracking leads, tracking your customer data, and making marketing be involved with that end-to-end journey from lead to sale. If your managing director or your CEO doesn't need to have all of that tracked, it's going to be really difficult to convince your sales guy, in this example, to use a CRM software. It is an admin task, as we know. Sales reps are quite often they're inundated with admin and operational burden quite a lot of the time, and I think it's the role of software, the CRM software, and the role of the marketing person to ensure that the sales reps' administrative burden is reduced, first of all, and then to actually see the benefits of it. So I think starting off with Salesforce Engage is a surefire way to get your sales rep excited or your managing director excited, because you're putting that nurturing in the hands of sales, and they'll be able to see the results quickly, because they'll be able to actually see that it enables them to close deals faster, because it gives them that insight into what their contact is interested in. So hopefully that answers the question. So question here, do you do a sanity check on your leads that score high, or is it all automated? So this really is, one of those, I'm sorry I have to answer, depends on your situation. Of course, you can automate things. The more automation you have, obviously, the more efficient your campaigns. You might want to say that any lead coming in from your top 200 prospects, and you can name those 200 prospects, automatically goes straight to your sales team or the account owner, because it's so important that you want to identify when they've come to your website, even just once. So you can set that as an instruction, no problem. You might want to then set an instruction that every lead then that reaches an engagement score of 200 or more, like we do here at Salesforce, gets pushed to a lead qualification team. And here at Salesforce, we have a lead we obviously a large organization, so we have the luxury of having a lead qualification team that are on the telephones and connect in with those marketing qualified leads that we send across to them. They then call them up and assess them for a simple band qualification. So do they have budget? Do they have a need? Is there are they the right kind of person to sign off on on that budget for software. And then if they've identified that that is a real opportunity, then they pass that along to sales. So that's our process, but of course if you don't have that qualification team, you can simply pass that straight across to sales. So really, really interesting question. You can obviously set that structure to be as manual or as automated as you want. So another, I think we probably have time for a final question here. How to avoid intercrossing lead nurturing campaigns. So that's really interesting. Good question, thank you. I think the most important thing, I think, is to define your personas from the outset. Really important to segment, who you're targeting and the different messages that you want to target those people with. Now, it's not to change, over time, someone who has come through your finance track might then be interested in your travel industry content later on. That of course can change. But while they are embedded in your finance track, you really want to make sure that everything is personalized to them in that sense. So I think from the outset, generate the personas. And don't necessarily just put them down the finance track if they've only served themselves on one piece of finance content. Really test and learn with different pieces of content, and once you're sure that they are definitely only interested in finance, perhaps it's 3 different web pages they've looked at within finance and a couple of content pieces, then put them through that option, but always give them that option to go back to a more generic nurture program afterwards, or within each communication that you have, just in case they don't happen to be in the right one. And of course, preference centers really important for that, to make sure that your customer can go in and select what paths that they want themselves. Thanks. So I think that's all the questions that I have here in the chat pod. I really appreciate everyone joining today, and really wanted to thank Veena for her great insights with this research report. And I think it's a super important subject. We will be sending this available after the presentation. So have a great day, everyone.